Good evening and welcome to the future of Ultimate. This is the first in a series of conversations with a purpose of exploring where our sport is headed in the next decade and beyond. I'm your host, Evan Lepler. I'm super excited to lead this panel. We got three amazing panelists, all of whom are fantastic players with interesting perspectives, and all are at different points in their careers, presumably have a unique vantage point to evaluate where the sport of Ultimate has been and where it's going. So without further ado, let's get to our distinguished guests. Inarguably one of the greatest players of all time, a many-time champion, and I'm referring to Beau Kittredge, despite Pawel Janas waving. Pawel Janas, a star in his own right, has led the AUDL in assists for Chicago over the past few years. We know how much he cares about statistics. And one of the young rising stars of the American Ultimate Disc League from the DC Breeze, AJ Merriman. We were chatting before we came on the air. AJ has won 3 Spirit Awards, he claims, and that's 3 more than Beau has ever won. So I think AJ has won more than Beau in the Spirit department. Not to say that Beau is unspirited by any means. Let's dive into the conversation. And Beau, since you have been playing the longest, we were joking you're old enough to be AJ's dad. We wanted to start with you. Perspective through the years playing Ultimate, witnessing the growth, I'm curious, how have you seen the sport grow over the past decade? And like, what are the biggest differences from 10, 15 years ago to where we are right now?
Well, I first want to reiterate that I would be proud to have AJ as a son. He is an outstanding human and a even better Ultimate player. And there are a few people when you meet on the Ultimate field that come up to you and introduce themselves in a way that makes you kind of want to keep playing Ultimate. And AJ is one of those people. So I'm super happy where the sport's going if those are the type of players that are going to be playing the sport for a long time. As far as where the sport came from, boy, it was a little rough about 20 years ago. A lot of thrown together Ultimate kind of. I wouldn't say parking lot, but it definitely felt like a parking lot a lot of times. Like the hardest fields you've ever felt, the worst conditions you've ever played in, and no observers, no refs, just you and a bunch of people yelling at each other for about a half hour. And now it just like the amount of, I don't know, money maybe helps. The amount of people playing, the passion, it's a joy to play now from where it used to be, and I couldn't be happier to see the progression happen just in my brief time playing.
I mean, I think that's well said. Pawel, I'll bring you in next. I mean, you're not quite as old as Beau. You won a championship at Colorado a decade after he did. But you have seen a lot in this sport. And I'm curious to ask you similarly, what are the biggest differences just, I mean, in the sport and how it's played from where you started to where we are now?
Well, I think the biggest difference is kind of like Beau said, before 10, 20 years ago, people were throwing around pretty informally, and the average skill level was so low that if you could throw a forehand, you were like a god of plastic, like you're a god of Frisbee. Now, if you can't throw a forehand, you can't even make it past the first round of tryouts. So just the average skill level and the intentionality that people bring to the game and to their training and to just trying to become the best Frisbee player that they can is way different. You know, when I started, it was all the cross-country kids that were cut that would come out to practice. It was, you know, maybe soccer kids. But now I see kids actually wanting to play Frisbee just by itself and become a good Ultimate player, which was not a thing 10 years ago. And with that, obviously comes with, you know, the much greater, you know, average level of skill and competitiveness and, you know, a much better show in terms of, you know, the quality of Frisbee and how many people want to watch the sport, I think.
Yeah, I mean, AJ, you must be hearing this and be like, man, I could have been really good in those good old days when you didn't have to have a forehand to compete.
AJ would have been a star. He is a star, but he would have been, you know, a V star back in my day.
So, like, AJ, we're talking about a decade or 15 years ago with Pawel and Beau. I mean, what's your kind of first memory of Ultimate?
The first time I ever saw Ultimate was Brody Smith on YouTube. I Googled what Ultimate Frisbee was. I got the AUDL and Brody Smith is what came up. So that was my very first Ultimate experience. That was pretty much it too. Once you like dove in, like trying to learn how to play online was all watching Brody Smith videos out on the golf course in his backyard. Not a lot of, now we got like Excel Ultimate, we got like real structured things so that kids can learn online. But back then there wasn't that much. Even like 5 years ago, there was way less than we had resource wise.
Why did you Google it initially? I'm curious.
Cross country practice. We were throwing a Frisbee around, and then I was like, this is fun. I want to see what it's about.
Well, there's obviously a lot that it's about, and there's a lot of avenues we could go down. I mean, AJ, you have the brightest future of any of us because you're just getting started. You're just crawling to your prime. I mean, not to make this all about age, but we do have these three unique vantage points for a reason. When you think about, how just the sport has changed in the time since you started playing to now, in what ways do you most envision it'll continue to evolve in the years ahead?
The trend of it being more legitimate and professional, I'd say, is the trend that I see rising the most. So getting more people professional, the women's leagues, the AUDL, having like not just like 4 or 5 people that are taking it seriously on each team, but having a whole team that's bought in and fully professional, I'd say is where I see it going, hopefully at least. But I do see that every day. Like when I'm out here, it seems to be going that way with the people that are training, with the people that are providing these resources. Like I said, it seems to be going in that direction.
Beau, how has the team cultures that you've been a part of evolved since you started playing? I mean, I imagine there's been lots of different styles that you've competed with and trained with, and I know how seriously you take it. But I got to imagine that, I mean, was there a tipping point at some point in your career when you and everyone else around you started taking it at a different level?
I do remember being impressed with the way the sport was going about, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. There was this sort of revolution or something where players and people started looking to other sports, started looking at the way companies were built, started looking at the way training was done, and started kind of actually listening to all of the people who had expertise and taking that to Ultimate. Because we don't really have a lot of expertise in Ultimate training or Ultimate coaching, but we are able to borrow a lot from other sports. And it was really cool the first years that I felt like everyone started realizing that it could be a real sport if we made it a real sport, and kind of like, if we build it, they will come attitude. And that's kind of one of the most beautiful things about Ultimate, is the fact that we're still building it and still deciding what the sport's going to be, and being able to see where it is now and seeing the dedication, the buy-in, the psychology, like everything that you want in a sport is now just beginning to grow and beginning to show, like it's starting to blossom in all these fantastic ways. And it's awesome. It's fun to be, it's like being in a startup that's becoming successful. It's beautiful.
Pawel, folks around the world couldn't see you during that, but I could. And you were shaking your head initially, and then you were smiling, and then you were nodding. What were you thinking as Beau gave that artful response?
Oh, no, I was just, what was I thinking? Well, I think Beau was saying that people were just becoming to do that in 2011, and that we don't have expertise in like Ultimate training. But like, it seems like every other day now, there's a new training company or a new someone advocating Ultimate training for Ultimate athletes. And it's like, well, I think we're at this point where we have so much knowledge, and it's kind of hard, especially for new players, to kind of know what to do. So I think what I was being confused about by shaking my head and stuff is maybe 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have any training. It seems like now we have so many different directions that guys could take, and we don't really know what's the best course of action. So that was my confusion. I mean, I agree with both that like it has exploded and that we have borrowed a lot from other sports. But now there seems to be an overload of information, I feel like. So that was my biggest point of confusion.
So presumably that overload isn't going anywhere. How do you guys decide what is the best course of action with now the overload of information?
You have to hitch your bandwagon to someone that you trust and to just go with it. Like as long as you, I mean, my philosophy is like, as long as you stick with something that works for you and you give it a try for 5 years, I think that's great. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you just bouncing around different programs or different things, different philosophies isn't going to help, anyone in the long run. So for me, I just like to, hitch my bandwagon to just one thing, and that's what I do. But I'm sure AJ and Beau have much different philosophies on that.
AJ?
Yeah. Yes. I like finding a bunch of different styles of ultimate. I talk to somebody on each coast every day if I can about Frisbee, finding out just like what's happening, what they're doing, how they're throwing, how they're training. But I love the overload of information that's coming into the sport right now. When I first joined the sport, one of the things that was talked about a lot was legitimacy, and if that's what we really wanted. And I think that as the legitimacy is building, we're still taking the sport in the direction that it's been going. Like, ultimate hasn't changed, just a bit, it's just growing. And I really appreciate that. So I might be not doing the best thing for me, but I'm dipping my toe in all the different ultimate trainings that are out there, for right now, at least.
Yeah, I think the thing you did kind of smartly, Evan, is to have 3 different people with 3 different perspectives, because especially when it comes to training, it's really, really difficult to find out what works for you. And that's kind of the thing about life, is that everybody's different, and what works for one person might not work for another person. I have people on my team who do the way AJ does, and then I have some people like Evan who just trains the exact same way year in and year out, and it really works for him. And for me, it was like a long process of figuring out what works. I tried training with every possible person that I could find and had to go through a lot of mistakes. I mean, I like downloaded the internet thing where it's like jump 40 inches higher, and the whole thing was making me do like 30, ridiculously stupid exercises every day, and I ended up getting hurt. And I had to learn that, because for me, I have to do everything before I learn. I'm like, I have to touch the hot stove to learn it's hot. And so I think a lot of people in ultimate are going to go through this growth where they have a lot of input, they have a lot of things going on, but in the end, it's going to start narrowing down what actually works. Like, if you look at like the bigger sports, they get a lot better as the information, the top people kind of go to the top trainers, and the top trainers aren't really that different.
Beau, do young players come up to you and ask you about?
I actually missed your question, Evan. Sorry.
Beau, do young players come up to you and ask you about training and what the best course is for the future?
Oh my God, it's the biggest asked question that I get. I get Instagram messages, I get Facebook messages. It's nonstop. And the sad thing is that I don't have the time or the right answer, because, like I said, everybody's different. I don't know where they're at in what their body's like, or their mind, and it's such an impossible question to respond to. And so I try to direct them to like some of the people that I know are good, like Goose or Chris Wykus, or any of those people who are like actual trainers that might give them a better shot at doing it right. But there's just so many ways that a person could train, considering that everybody's body is different. And, some people might come in and they might already be athletic, and so they might just need fast, quick twitch muscles, and someone might come in, they might be a little overweight. Like, you just have no idea where they're at. So it's such an impossible question. I wish I was a better way to answer all those kids. I feel bad. Sometimes I ignore them. Then I feel really bad. Yeah, it's one of my. Well, I do feel sad about this.
Well, reach out to Beau, and either he'll
No.
respond or
Evan.
he'll feel sad about not.
You can reach
responding.
out to me.
You can reach out to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got
Hey,
you.
so Pawel,
What's up?
compared to AJ and Beau, you are the handler, the quarterback of the offense, and I know how much time you spend into watching film and thinking about different strategies. At
Right.
this point, are you still trying to innovate new strategies, stuff that hasn't been done before, or tweak things that can really change the game, or is it just about perfecting the strategies that you've worked through the years?
So I think this is going to be a two-part answer. So I think the first part, if we stay in the realm of the rules of Ultimate as we play it now, there's a very basic strategy to win games, and that is to not turn the Frisbee over. Like, no turnovers will always win you the game. So that's a very stupid and short answer to your question. But I think the more interesting kind of counterpoint is, what if we change the rules? And I think a lot about how we can change the rules of Ultimate to make it way more interesting and way less like handler and cutter driven, and how we can actually make it into a completely different sport that'll be way better for playing and for watching. So that's what I spend my time on these days. I think in my mind mentally, I know what I need to do, and I know what the team needs to do to be successful. And it's about execution. It's not about having a good strategy. Like, I know I told you about a year ago that I know Brian Jones is somewhere in the basement right now scheming offensive, defensive plays, and he'll be doing that for the next 30, 40 years. I'm not one of those people. I think the schemes are there, and you just have to execute. And instead, I kind of fantasize about what we can do to get rid of some of the rules that are prohibiting the sport from making it really interesting.
Well, don't leave Brian on. What are those? What are those things?
Tell us the rules.
Okay. So I would love to see a rule where. So stay with me here. So I think there has to be two phases of Ultimate. Like, one phase where you actually play real Ultimate, where you have to like catch it and stop it and throw it. But I think there has to be a point where if you decide to just go for it and you run, then it's like you have to throw in the go, and if you stop, then it's a travel. So there's going to be so any team can pick two different styles of play, and they can be on the same point. So you can play regular Ultimate, but then once, for example, one of the most frustrating things for me is like when someone catches it 2 yards out of the end zone and he just caught a deep hook and the guy's behind him, just go ahead and trot into the end zone. Just go ahead and just run it out. Another thing would be really interesting if someone's catching it like super wide near the end zone, and you can avoid your defender, like do like a little swivel move and just run into the end zone. Go do it. So I think there should be some way we allow receivers and just in general to run with the Frisbee and make it a whole new dynamic game where it's like after that it turns into like a game of tag or where you have to, it's a completely different game. So that's what I think about. I don't know if this is any good, but that's what I think.
How does the defense stop a receiver from running into the end zone?
It's just at that point it's like tackle or tag. I mean, it's going to start with tag, but then we can go to tackle. But if you just start with then if the team decides to run, then all you need to do is either force a turnover, like a regular turnover, or you have to tag or tackle the person to get a turnover.
I mean, I'm not saying this isn't entertaining, but this is not the non-contact,
just tag,
kumbaya Frisbee.
But who says it should be, or who says that it needs to be in the future, right? This is the future of Ultimate talk. So let's get wild.
So you want full contact Ultimate?
That's not to be full contact, but it could be more, more permissive of contact.
Touch. I like that.
Could be touch.
I definitely would like that.
Beau, what's your reaction to that?
I actually am as you know, I've been running a video game company, which is a startup. And there's one thing I've learned, and that is you can't really dictate what product's going to be successful. And so if you're trying to make a product, it's best to test every possible way to make the product. And I don't think Ultimate has done enough testing of different ways of playing the sport. And I'd be down to see or try anything. And sometimes it's like when we're building a video game, sometimes it's the bugs that actually become the product, or it's the glitches or the little things that we do wrong that we're like, oh, well, you should keep that. That looks really cool. That actually works really well. And I think that because Ultimate was so set in stone when we got it, that it's been kind of hard to move it. I do think the sport's really beautiful the way it is now, but if I was in charge of Ultimate, I would try a whole bunch of different things and see what worked, what people want to watch. Because if we're trying to make a sport for other people and we're deciding what other people like, that's not really, I mean, it could work, but it's definitely a lot better to constantly test and iterate.
So what are your first 2 or 3 changes that you would make?
Oh, dang it. Maybe smaller. Okay, I guess I would do smaller fields. I would do that you could play with smaller amount of players, maybe like 5-on-5. I would do it so that you can play like almost like inside on a basketball, like a smaller place with a padded ground, perhaps, and make it so that everyone is always playing. And also include, I would have like, let's see, I would have a men's team, a women's team, and a co-ed team, and you all play, and you're all part of the same team. And then you all play, and whoever wins the 2 out of 3 or, you know, whatever, wins for that team. So, but more like making it kind of like the way beach volleyball is, the way it can be with smaller amount of players and a more exciting sport. I think more people watch probably beach volleyball than real volleyball. I don't know. I made that stat up, but
I would say I know a lot of volleyball players. I'd say that's probably true.
I don't know. Maybe beach ultimate.
Beach. That sounded nice. The 6 players, 5 players, reducing the players, more space on the field. That's exciting. That's exciting. Yeah.
So when I play beach ultimate, I think the field is too small.
Is an AUDL field too big?
I don't know.
Where's the
I think
spot?
I think ultimate players love to say that it's too big because they've been used to it for, 45, 50 years.
AJ's never seen
clip.
a small field. AJ doesn't know any difference.
Club field's small to me. Club field's small to me, for real.
Yeah, see?
AUDL feels more real because I've played football and other stuff before more than Frisbee. So the club field definitely is like, feels restrictive when I'm like trying to cut. I prefer handling in club and then letting it go on the AUDL field. And defense is so much more fun on an AUDL field because you got to cover more ground. You got to be way smarter with your positioning. It's just so technique based. You could lose on footwork on a club field, but on that AUDL field, you can get it back. That's the exciting plays. Those are the big plays. That's where I like Ultimate to go. The big plays. The technique driven big plays. And even like scheming on a big field, you can draw up so many. That's what I do. I'm the Brian Jones type. I'm in my room drawing up plays every day, drawing up different concepts. Got different like patterns. I got tons of patterns. I got a notebook full of patterns for the AUDL field. That's where I see it going.
How about we allow 4-on-4 at end of quarter situations? So you only have 2 guys going 1-on-1 for like buzzer beaters. This is super practical. Someone in the AUDL, take notes. You get this one for free. Next rule changes, I'll start charging. But just when it's below 30 seconds and we know it's going to be a buzzer beater floaty, hospital pass, go ahead and just put 4 guys out there. So it's not like a pile up. So like guys are actually going head to head, and it's like a Randy Moss drill. Just super easy. Just make it 4-on-4 in the exciting situations.
I like that a lot because I definitely think AUDL players. I don't feel like any of us like the buzzer beaters.
AJ, that's great because you are the future of Ultimate. So thank God that you like my ideas. I have faith that they will be implemented maybe in 10 or 20 years. So
I'll put the pressure on. I got you.
So why don't you like the buzzer beaters? Because they're pretty darn exciting. I understand they're a different form of Ultimate, but it's almost like the soccer shootout. I mean, the end of quarter tweak that you can gain an advantage on if you do well. So I find them exciting, interesting. Why don't you like them?
No, so I do like them a lot. So I don't want 5 guys. Like I don't want 10 people going up for a hospital pass and all of them going 20-inch off the ground. I want 2 guys going 30 inches off the ground and having a lot of space and having a one-on-one matchup. Like think about it. You know what's going to happen. It's 30 seconds, game is tied, and the 2 tallest dudes on the team are 2 best receivers and defenders are going to go head to head. No one else is in the picture. So you have an end zone to throw it in, and then it's just 2 dudes going up for it. And you do that by eliminating the other 3 people on each side.
You're eliminating the guy that's going to clean up the trash.
I hate that guy. That guy. Screw that guy. No. That guy can go sit on the sideline. Yeah. So you just get the guys who actually are going to go up for it and make the highlight reel plays and brand the sport the way it should be branded. So cut all the riffraff and get all the actual athletes in there for the end of quarter situations. Super simple. Please implement this AUDL.
So that's the rule change version. How do you guys think the end of quarter in the AUDL could change? Because I don't think anybody, like the player wise, it's too random. You can't maximize your advantage that you can gain with that extra break at the end of the extra point at the end of the quarter. It's difficult right now just with 8 seconds throwing the disc to the end zone. I don't know how teams could game that to their advantage, but I've been thinking about it and I haven't come up with anything.
Beau, you've had more buzzer beater situations than any of us. What do you think?
Yeah, I used to be the guy that Pawel liked, and now I'm the guy that Pawel doesn't like. I just sit there waiting for the junk. I'm like, come on, people, jump, and maybe I'll get the disc later because it's too risky. I'm not trying to get injured over there's just too many big bodies these days jumping at the disc in weird ways. I'm not trying to risk an ACL over a point, but I do like it. It's interesting, but I like Pawel's idea.
Me too.
AJ, do you have any other rule changes that you'd like to see in the future for the AUDL or otherwise?
Stall 5. I love the low stall.
Interesting.
I love the low stall. It makes for a better ultimate. It's like a lower shot clock in basketball. You got to move the disc more. I think every coach would be happy about the lower stall. I don't think any coach would complain. Yep.
Pawel is the guy who has the disc in his hands more than these guys. How do you feel about stall 5?
It's fine. It doesn't matter. It's not like I get stalled at all, so it's fine. Make it stall 3. Make it stall 3. Make it stall 2. I don't care. It's an advantage for me, and it's a disadvantage for everyone else. So it's. I'm confident that I will learn how to play with a new stall. I think what I would rather see is more situations where players are mic'd up. I think it'd be super fun for the people at home to see kind of things we say to one another. So just give me a microphone and I will, or give anyone a microphone on their jerseys, and micing players up would be a super simple way of getting some verbal highlights.
As far as I know, I have the only mic'd up footage. We were mic'd up at regionals last year, Watchdogs.
And how was that? It was awesome, wasn't it? Yeah,
it worked very well.
Do you have everyone mic'd up?
We only could do 2 players at a time, but we did the handlers mostly.
I worry about the technology budget skyrocketing because this equipment keeps breaking because it keeps getting strewn around the field in crazy ways. But no, you may not need a broadcaster anymore, so I don't know if this is a good thing for me. But if you have the audio from the field, theoretically, you need someone to toss it in and out of breaks. Well, having played in the AUDL since 2014, and you played Major League Ultimate before that, what do you want professional Ultimate to be in the future that it may not be right now?
There's so much. Where do I begin? I think they are headed in the right direction when it comes to allowing players to commit fully to being the best Ultimate players they can be. We still haven't seen what it would be like if there was enough money to draw in real athletes, if you want to say it, or we haven't really seen what it's like to fill a full stadium full of, I don't know how big these stadiums are, but I'm sure that we could fill at least 5,000 or 6,000 people if we did it right. And I think just pumping in the energy as far as having DJs, having shows going on, let's make it something fun to go to. And because we don't really have any rules we have to follow for this startup we're creating, we can really go and try anything we want when it comes to entertainment being at the games or entertainment on the field, and the way we change players or have players, or the way players celebrate. We can have fans really close to this field if we wanted. We could put them like WWF. We could do anything we wanted, and we're not really doing a lot of that stuff that comes with entertainment. And I think a lot of the Ultimate players would be okay with trying fun stuff. I mean, when we grew up, like, we would play where people were standing on the sidelines. It's like everywhere you went around the sideline, and that type of energy when it's everyone surrounding the field yelling and screaming, and it just creates a type of environment that really feels fun. It's like a cage fight. And I don't know, I think we can get back to that, or I think there's a possibility for that type of environment.
Pawel, what do you most want to see from the AUDL in the decade ahead?
Doesn't matter what I want to see, but I think the AUDL is at a crossroads, and I don't know if I could shift the discussion here a little bit. So I think there's two different ways the AUDL can go. So I think one way is we can keep catering to Ultimate players that have played like Club Ultimate and are purists of the game, and have a certain way of playing the game and certain ideals and spirit of the game. All of that is really good, and I agree with that. That is one very small segment of the people that I hope will be consuming Ultimate in the future. And there's another way that the AUDL can go where they can just market and they can spend resources of getting non-Ultimate players and non-Frisbee players excited about the sport, and in which case they can experiment. So they don't have to stick by the pure, this pure Ultimate nature as it's been played historically. I think if you go after people that have never played Ultimate but are interested in watching it and are entertained by it, then the sport can grow and be more innovative. So I think you can't have both. I don't think you can't please one crowd of the crowd that was all upset about refs and like the refs are the worst thing ever. It will take away spirit of the game, and people will all of a sudden just foul each other. It'll be terrible, and have this new growth of the new segment of non-Frisbee players. Because right now, if you think about who's watching Frisbee, it's ex or current Frisbee players, pretty much, right? We haven't reached this market of non-Frisbee playing audience.
Casual fans.
There are no casual fans yet, which is what I hope the league will eventually attract.
AJ, I'll let you jump in a second, but Pawel, just to follow up, you say you can't have it both ways. Do you fit in both columns? Do you like the purity and also the experimentation?
Well, it doesn't matter what I like. I will go along with anything, right? I will promote the sport in any way you see it fit. I'm just saying I think the AUDL has the platform, and certainly some teams have the resources to do that, right? It's unlike club teams and unlike USAU per se. The AUDL can actually reach international and broad audiences that are not Frisbee playing people. And no, I don't think any other organization can say that. So I'm just saying the AUDL has the capability to do it, but I will do whatever the sport needs me to do to push it forward. I'm just saying there's two different ways. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Jump in, AJ.
Awesome. So I'll tell you what I think. I think that that the AUDL can definitely go in the second direction that Pawel was saying, the casual fan direction, while still maintaining the like spirit of Ultimate, that feeling, that vibe that Ultimate is, and hopefully that will keep all the club players around and invested in Ultimate, because I think that's the way that Ultimate grows the most, and we get the most people playing Ultimate, is where you have the club scene where everybody who's playing club, and they have their day job and they love Ultimate, they're playing Club Ultimate, and all that's funded by the Pro League that is out, that has all these casual fans, that's international, that has fully professional players playing in it, where that is their day job. Their day job is to play Ultimate and to spread Ultimate and make money for Ultimate, so that the club scene can be everything that it once was and then can be, so that we have a bunch of people standing around the field at club events, because there's so many people playing. We have so many people from different backgrounds playing in the future, because we're already headed in that direction. And more money in Club Ultimate isn't going to hurt that, helping them achieve whatever they want to achieve over there at USAU and WIFDIF internationally. But the AUDL has the capabilities to fund that if we keep going after casual fans like that and experimenting and having fun.
AJ, there's such a push in the sport, both inside and outside of the AUDL, for diversity and inclusion. What have you seen in the youth community? I mean, coming up through that community, how is the diversity among young teenage youth players now compare to what you see at the elite levels of the sport?
The youth level is diverse, and then elite is not really. So when you're playing high school, there's tons of teams from everywhere because they're from their high schools. There's the only time I've ever seen a black team was in high school, where the team was majority like African American. There were a bunch of black players on the team, and it was awesome. But I've never seen another team like that. So in high school, you have people from all different backgrounds because it's the cheapest to play in high school because you're mostly going to local tournaments. It's aside from pro, high school, I would say, is the cheapest form of Ultimate. But then once you get out of high school, you have to start investing a bunch of money. You got to start paying, and that's where it drives down the diversity. And also, there's not club teams, places where people like diverse people live and where there would be diversity because after high school, there's not anything to do. So there's not going to be organizers, which sucks, but it's changing. And the more people that we have talking about it, the more people that are aware, and the better the AUDL is doing, the better the PUL is doing, the better the WL is doing, the more it will change, I hope.
I mean, all these leagues are providing new platforms for Ultimate players. And I mean, the AUDL has been around for 8 years. The PUL has played one season. We're still waiting for the Western Ultimate League to play, hopefully in 2021. You guys have all competed as semi-professional Ultimate players. What's it been like to kind of have fans watching you? I know, Pawel, you said it's mostly Frisbee community. I'd push back against that a little bit, but I think you're mostly right. But like, how do you envision the future of Ultimate fans being and how they consume Ultimate and are able to watch on TV and streaming and et cetera? Beau? You're muted, Beau.
Technology. The thing I've learned over the years is that if you have a person coming in watching the sport who has an open mind and who hasn't kind of been taught that Ultimate's stupid, perhaps a young kid, and the way they perceive the sport and the way they treat you after watching it for the first time is exactly the way you would imagine any other professional sport. And so I definitely see the potential of the sport to be something where it has a huge fan base and has a whole bunch of people that come up and are interested in talking about it and getting autographs and being part of your life and talking to the athletes. And I think that as we progress down whatever path we decide to choose, we'll have to kind of decide who we're going after, kind of the way both of these players have said. And I think it is important to remember that if we appeal to a broader crowd, then we'll have more diversity and we'll have more people that are from different walks of life coming up and being part of the fan base. And so I hope that we're able to kind of look at the sport and look at the direction and not say so concrete in what Ultimate has to be that we just forgive and lose all of the other potential out there. Because it really is amazing to have somebody come up and just be enamored with what you've done and how you played the sport and the way your team has participated. And especially for players like us, where we put in so much time and effort and love, and to be recognized for that, it is a good feeling. And like, I don't want to be particularly like famous, but it still feels really cool to be recognized for something you put so much energy into.
Pawel?
What's up? Can you
How do you feel about that?
I have so many strong feelings. So I think, so I know where Beau's coming from in terms of like wanting that. So let me phrase this in an experience. So for example, after the All-Star game in 2019, it was really cool to see all the people come out on the field after the game and wanting to meet the fans and seeing them really excited about Ultimate and about the work that you've put in. I think that's awesome, and I think that's if that is something that excites you, that's great. And I think it's awesome to see that there's that some sort of excitement about the UDL. I would say though that can't be like the driving factor. I think like people, and I'm not going to say this correctly, I'm not going to say this very eloquently, but I'm going to try. I think there has to be player driven in the sense that the players have to have some have to derive some meaning from playing this game, and if it means changing the way the game's played, that it has to happen regardless if fans appreciate them for it. And I know I didn't say that correctly. I didn't say that very, very well, but it has to be something. If we want to see change in the game, if the future is going to be different, it's going to be player driven, and it's not going to have to necessarily encompass, or it has to include like fan adoration. Like I don't think fan adoration, as long as the fans are watching and they're excited, like it doesn't matter to me, I think, if they envy you for it or if they appreciate you for it. Probably didn't make any sense, but
well, I'm curious, what do you mean when you say the future has to be player driven?
Well, the players are the product, right? Without the players, there's no anything, right? So if the players all of a sudden decide to do something, like they should, if the players decide that all of a sudden they care about some things and others, whether it's X's and O's or versus where the sport needs to be in terms of positioned in terms of social issues or in terms of the community impact. And if that's what the players want to do, the players should feel empowered to do that. So that's what I mean. Like it shouldn't be fan driven and doing whatever the fans want. It should be what the players decide to do with it.
So, for example, like when the AUDL a couple of years ago, players wanted women's professional leagues, and so they made that known, and then we made that happen, or other people made that happen. Now we made that happen.
I was going to AJ, no, AJ, no, we did not. No. The women's leagues happened because of a dedicated and strong women, not because of any UDL support. Let's not get into that.
it was made known that that's what the players wanted, right. And then together everybody supported the people that made that happen. I'd say that's fair for everybody, and that's the power of Ultimate. And I'd say that's what it means to me when you say that it's player driven and that it's got to be player driven for the future. That's what it means to me. That's all I was saying, is that like we do have the power, and it's clear that we have the power, and that I don't think we should think that we don't have the power ever, because we do, and we can make things happen very quickly and when they need to happen. And it's an important time in Ultimate, so because we're growing rapidly. So whatever is happening, as long as the players stay engaged and keep voicing our opinions, we're being heard at this moment.
AJ, what's the balance for you between speaking up, sharing your opinions, being someone that is trying to negotiate change versus just being the best player you can be?
I'd say that I am 100% focused on being the best player I can be. And the better that I get, I have more of a platform to speak up. So then the better I get, the more I speak up, I'd say. So I'm just trying to be the best I can be. But yeah, I love that I can speak up for people that don't have a platform. And I will continue to do that and fight for my platform.
Yeah, Beau, you're someone that has used your platform through the years, writing mostly. I know you enjoy writing, and you haven't done it as much lately, at least publicly. But there was a time where you were churning out a column every couple of weeks about the sport, trying to share your views and make people love the game and also provoke some change.
Yeah, I think that AJ is right, and I look forward to future generations stepping up and making a lot of their voices heard, because Pawel's right that the players do own the sport right now. We are the main product, and so if we want something, we can make it happen. And it's happened. I've seen it happen multiple times throughout my career, and I think it's amazing. And I'm really proud of the way that a lot of the change has happened because of the Ultimate players. That part of it is amazing, but it also comes with a negative side, and the negative side was starting to get to me in a way that wasn't good for my own mental health, and it kind of made me want to stop being in the spotlight, because I couldn't seem to participate in a way that didn't hurt me. And so I no longer wanted to be part of something that didn't either seem to understand me or care to understand, or maybe I was not using my words correctly. But I think I dropped out mostly for my own mental health. And that's, I think a lot of ultimate players kind of feel that when they go online or it can be a kind of toxic community and sometimes. And it's really too bad because there's so many wonderful people and so many people trying so hard. And that part does disappoint me, but I'm glad that AJ has not lost hope yet. So,
I mean, this is a whole new can of worms that I'm not sure we
Let's open it.
should dive into.
I deleted Twitter.
But I mean, you think about, my question is Ultimate a reflection of the world? I mean, there's a lot of toxicity out there in the world. And you're right, Beau. I mean, whether it's barking at the AUDL or other people in Ultimate or someone that made a bad bid or was it a bad bid or whatever it might be, like, is it going to be more toxic in the future? What can we do to decrease the toxicity, or is it hopeless?
Pawel, you go first.
Yeah, no, I think as long as players like us exist that really care about the sport, we'll always be felt. We always feel like we're being slighted or that people are attacking us. And I am kind of with Beau. Like after every season, I want to quit and I want to retire. And it goes for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then I get back into it. But like, yeah, it's not like I don't think it's a sport-wide thing. I think it's just for a certain kind of player, you will always feel like the sport is attacking you in some way. And I know, the first time hearing that Beau has felt this way, I feel like this after every season, after every team that I've played on. And AJ, if you haven't felt this yet, you will feel this very soon. Don't retire on us too early, but just
what do you mean?
You know what's happening.
The sport's attacking you.
You just feel inadequate in the sense that it's not like even on social media or anything. It's like you feel like you've after every season, it feels like there's always something wrong with someone. Someone always has a gripe, and it's the way the team's managed or the way the sport. Like you don't like the way the direction of your team or the league or the division or whatever it is. There's always something that someone is complaining about, and it really does wear on you. And it's like people are questioning everything that you do. And as players that are in the spotlight and who make mistakes and who are responsible for some part of the league or of the division, it really bears it bears down on us. It really hurts us at the end. But that's why there's the off season, right? That's why you kind of get broken down, and that's why you have to build back up. Not to scare you away, AJ.
Well, so AJ, I gotta ask. Is this resonating with you, or are you just the innocent, teenager who is still loving everything about this sport and cannot believe that these icons of the game have these kind of negative words about the sport?
I can say that I definitely understand what they're saying. I have not gone through it personally yet, but I know what they're talking about. Yes. And I'd say it happens. That's natural. That's part of the sport. It definitely is terrible. But it's part of the sport, and it's in every sport. I'd say that's one of the downfalls of it getting more legitimate. There's more pressure. The better you get, and the more people are counting on you, watching you, looking up to you. I'd say that definitely has an impact on anybody.
Beau, have you felt the pressure as more eyeballs have been on the sport later in your career?
I think it depends on in which aspect of the sport you're talking about. I think when it comes to playing Ultimate, I've actually enjoyed it more. Like the more pressure, I love pressure. In fact, the more people are watching, the better I would perform. I love playing against huge stadiums that are against me. Like that's one of my favorite things, and I just love when something's on the line, you really get to kind of feel it's a different feeling than you ever get in your life, because a lot of times you don't have every decision doesn't really matter. But then when you do get in these situations where you're in this big stadium with this big screen and it's being broadcasted, and it's like you're representing the sport to so many different people for the first time, and it's a wonderful feeling to know that every little throw matters, and every little footwork matters, and every little way you talk to your teammate matters, because like in the end of the day, like you don't want to go home a loser in front of all of these people's eyes. You want to go home victorious. And like it's a wonderful game in that respect, because you're not guaranteed to win, and you're not guaranteed to survive a point. And I don't know, I love it. But when it comes to like the off-field stuff, that's kind of why I've dropped off the map a little here.
Oh, no one on here is talking about on-field pressure. We all love to compete, and we want the biggest moments, all of us here. And we're talking about the second stuff, the latter. Don't make us seem like losers. Oh, these guys can't handle pressure. No. I won't stand for this.
I was trying to avoid the other one because the other one's more difficult to talk about. In that way, I feel I am definitely have felt as I've grown older, I've become more sensitive to the way people talk to me, and the way people argue, and the way people can be aggressive towards things they don't understand. And it feels like if I want to put energy into something, that I want it to be done in a way where it's kind of accepting that we're all trying to do it for the right reasons, and to move the sport in the right direction, and not out of like malice or bad intent. And I think a lot of times the way people talk to each other on social media, or when you're voicing your opinion, can be so negative without understanding the full story, that I just kind of wanted to not be part of that anymore, and let people who could do that step up. And hopefully the people that are stepping up now with a voice are able to lead the sport in the right direction. And at some point I do want to become more involved with talking about it. But at this point, it's like, it is exhausting. It's mentally exhausting to go out there and put your voice and your soul on the line of like how you think the sport is, and trying to shape something, and have so many people just go attack you, and for not even like they don't want a conversation, they just want to attack. And I don't know, maybe I could do a better job at that, and I know I should, but it's something that's just kind of hurt me in a way that like I just kind of backed off. So
I mean, I appreciate you sharing, and I think it's fascinating. And I love, Beau, when you get introspective about this stuff and really and truthful about it. I know how much you love the sport despite all of these things. I don't want to ask how much longer do you plan on playing at the highest level, but do you envision there will be a time when you won't have this hunger anymore, or this love for the sport?
Oh, I'll always love the sport. I definitely want to make the sport into something really amazing at some point. And I want to do it in I want to actually be able to shape it. And I have a lot of hope that I can do that. But as far as playing Ultimate, I don't know. Maybe at some point, I don't know. I can't think about that. It's really hard in this current situation and climate to understand how long I can play.
AJ, do you have ambitions now in your mind to help shape the sport? Like when you take the field for the Breeze, are you thinking, there might be an 11-year-old kid who's seeing Ultimate for the first time, and I want to put on a show for him? Or is that stuff just way out of your mind?
I'd say yes, definitely, that I'm worried about shaping the sport. I'm trying to shape the sport. Part of the reason why I wanted to play professional Ultimate was to shape the sport, because I know that's where you can grow the other aspects of the sport. So yes, and oftentimes I sent the 11-year-old the link. I coach a lot of youth kids, and I love sending the link so they can watch. And so yes, every time I'm out on the field, it's for the youth, it's for the kids. I coach as many high school kids as I can. I got them all at Breeze tryouts every year. So yes, the future of the sport is very important, and I would like to shape it and make as many low ballers as we can get.
So I didn't want to bring this up, but we're at the very end. We're going to wrap it up by the top of the hour. I mean, the future of Ultimate on the field in terms of spirit and passion and energy and trash talk, like where is the line? There was a moment in the Breeze Empire game where one of your teammates, AJ McCullum, went at Beau a little bit, trash talking after an end of quarter score. Beau says he loved it. He's like, no one talks trash to me anymore. This is amazing. Be careful, though, poking the tiger. Like, what is the right amount? Where is that line for the future in your mind?
Higher than it is here. The bar is higher. I think that the spirit of the game is very important, and part of the spirit of the game is respecting your opponent. So knowing what you can say and what you can't, how physical you can be, how physical you can't. It's all part of the spirit. As long as everything's in good fun and you shake hands after the game, then you can be more competitive. And winning at all costs is a very high bar. You can be just below that and still be a little controversial. If it got Beau fired up, then it got Beau fired up. I'm sure that wasn't Cullum's intention, and then we had to deal with that afterwards. So it's all part of the ebb and flow of the game. Yep.
Beau, how do you feel about that? Where's the line?
I love it. I agree with him. I think there's a huge difference between playing unsafe and getting in somebody's grill and talking trash and, playing super aggressively in a way that is safe. And there are plenty of athletes, professional athletes in all sports that you see do it right. And in Ultimate, you see players that do it right. There are players that do it wrong, but I think in general, just because someone has a lot of intensity, or like you said, I can't remember what he did. Maybe he spiked on me. Whatever it was great, because it was like, to me, it's bringing a fire and an intensity and a passion that kind of gets all of the energy from both teams involved. And it didn't hurt me. Like, I don't even remember what happened, but I just remember thinking, oh, we're going to beat this team. Like, this team, like, I may have said F this team and then looked at that guy and said, he's never touching the disc again. Like, you don't get that unless you have someone making sparks happen, Like, you don't get a fire without a few, sparks or something. So I love it. And I'm glad that AJ, as a young athlete, understands the difference between intensity and talking trash and still being competitive and still staying safe. Because it is, I hope that people do understand there is a huge difference between spirit of the game and intensity.
Chime in, Pawel.
I'm just gonna plug one more idea here, or the same idea. Just mic players up, so not only can we talk trash to each other, but the fans at home can hear us talking trash to one another, and I think it will add a lot of entertainment value. So Tim DeBile at AUDL, please take a note of that.
And then we might need to go on a 5 or 10 second delay or something like that to,
How great would that be?
Yeah.
You guys aren't familiar with what's called the dump button in radio, where there's just a big red button in it. You push that button.
I'm very familiar with the dump button. People press it and I get the disc. It's the dump
that's
button.
the reset
I'm
button.
very well. It's a reset button. I know what you're talking about.
One final thought on something we discussed tonight or something that we didn't discuss tonight. What's something about the future of Ultimate that you are excited about, intrigued by, thinking of? Beau, I'll put you on the spot first.
I would say my favorite part that I'm beginning to see more and more of is the level of athletes and the level of players and their dedication to the game at the young age. Like, high school through college, both men and women's. Like, it's crazy watching some of these highlights and some of these younger players and how much better they are. And like, to see what that can do, like to see what that's going to look like. Oh my God. Yeah. That's what I'm fired up about.
Pawel?
I'm fired up about money. So I think that more money in the sport, and the more, not just in the UDL, but in every professional, in both professional or in all professional leagues, the more money we have and the more power we have to make the sport grow. So I'm excited that we have money now, and that we will hopefully continue having money.
Yeah, it could be a game changer for sure. AJ,
you have to spend
what's on
money
your
to make
mind?
money.
The growth of the sport, the more legitimate athletes, more buy-in, the higher level of competition in all levels of competition, and diversity. I think I have to say that. That's a given.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, so athleticism,
Yes.
money and resources, and the growth and diversity. I mean, that's a pretty good future, and hopefully that's where we're going. Guys, I feel like this was a little random. We bounced around a bunch, but I think when I go back and listen to it, that I'll be pretty impressed by some of the comments that we heard here tonight. So that'll wrap up our first episode of the Future and Ultimate series. We will be off next Thursday night for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back 2 weeks from tonight. I believe it's December 3rd with 3 great AUDL coaches, Brian Jones and Miranda Roth and Daryl Stanley on the schedule. There's the graphic right there. So we thanks to our panelists tonight, Pawel Janas, Beau Kittredge, AJ Merriman. Guys, seriously, great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All who watched and watch this, make sure you send Beau an Instagram message to let him know that you want his advice, and then reach out to AJ the next day because maybe he'll respond when Beau didn't. I'm Evan Lepler for Luke Johnson and everyone at the AUDL, for Pawel, for AJ, for Beau. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.